Boom. Hey, it's your man Mace right here going live in the basement. Really glad that you're here. I'm gonna give it a couple minutes to let's see who's gonna tune in. Certainly want to give credit to anybody who's gonna be hanging out with me. I have a really special guest tonight. Good friend of mine, Tim Harrison. Tim and I worked together in the automotive industry for a while. Got a chance to do some mentorship with him. He taught me a lot about the business, about people, about communication outside of the Marine Corps. So Tim's also a former active duty Marine. We had a lot of things in common when we first met. We really clicked really quickly, and it made it a lot easier for us to work together and achieve a common goal. What we're going to talk about tonight, though, is we're going to talk about pride, and the pride in every sense of the word, kind of how it plagues us, how it helps us, where it comes from, how it helps dictate how well you'll be as a leader, how well you'll do in a leadership position. Does it make sense? And we'll kind of go through some of those things. So we'll get a couple minutes and let people get started. Once they hop on, then we'll get cracking. All right. Open this up. All right. So hey, if you're tuning in, please let me know. I'm using a streaming program called StreamYard, so I can't see who you are until you say hello. So please say hello. I certainly do want to know that you're here. I want to acknowledge that you're here. I know that you have something. You could have a show that you're watching tonight, or you could have something else that you could be doing, but you decided to hang out with me, and I'm really thankful for that. I'm going to have a special guest, Tim Harrison, on tonight, and we're going to be talking about a pride. So if you're here, please shoot me a comment. Let me know you're here. If it's not your first time, please just say, hey, this is my second week, or this is my third week. This is my first time tuning in. I'm super excited to have everybody here tonight. I'm gonna get kind of started with my content here in just a few minutes. Again, I always want to remind anybody who's tuning in, if you ever want to just call into the show and want to talk and you don't want to be on live, I used to be nervous about it too. But if you don't want to be on live, you don't want somebody to see you or whatever it may be, that's okay. You can still call in. I left the number down there in the banner. Just call right on in and we can chit chat, talk, or whatever. Please leave your comments below. I will put your comments up on the screen. I want this to be an interactive experience for you. I want you to feel valued being a part of the conversation we have, because a lot of the things that we're missing as adults is that we don't communicate about things that actually affect us in life. We communicate about things that really have no bearing on our life, and just things that probably bother us or things we get happy about, taking pictures of food or something, So let's comment, let's be active, let's be involved. If you're here watching, take 2 seconds and about say, hey, Mark, so I know who you are. I want to know that I communicated with you. Please take the time to share it. Let people know that we're doing. So, hey, let's move right on into this thing. Let's talk about pride. What is pride? Pride, in my mind, there are 2 sides of it. There are probably 1,000 sides of it, but pride in and of itself is really just a feeling that you get about something. All right. So the actual textbook definition is a feeling or deep pleasure derived from one's own achievements, your friends' achievements, and those achievements of things that are socially valued. So if it's something worth talking about, if it's socially valued, you did something, you save some kids from a burning bus. If you, hit a Genesis Book of World Records, if you achieved something that was greater than you did before and it benefited somebody, that's something to be proud of. On the flip side of it, if you did something that doesn't have any, social value, to be proud of it, like saying back when I was drinking a lot, I don't drink anymore at all. But when I was drinking, I got to a point where I was proud of how much I could drink. I could outdrink everybody. Well, that's no social value. In some, let me take it back. In some circles, there is some type of social value in being able to outdrink everybody. You can kill your liver the fastest. So for some people, that's the way it was. But there's no real actual value because there's no progress that can be made from it. So that's what pride is. And my second question is, where does pride come from? And my personal opinion is that pride can come from a couple different places. Pride can come from a dark place, a selfish place, where people don't like to talk about, but it's the truth. Pride comes from very, very dark places, but one side of pride comes from you actually taking responsibility for a specific action that's considered positive, that's considered socially valued. So what are some of those things that would be a socially valued or a something specific that you did? Say you were playing a basketball game. You're playing a basketball game, you come to the game, you score 2 or 3 points, it's valued. Somebody saw you did, that's something to be proud of. Pride comes from that. If you have, achieved straight A's as a student, if you graduated college, those are the good parts of what pride comes from. because you've actually done something that is considered positive. You slapping 5 people ain't something to be proud of. Now, if you're a professional slapper and you win the competition, potentially that's something to be proud of. But outside of that, probably not so much. Where else can pride come from? Pride, as it moves forward, begins to take on a whole different form. And that form is no longer called pride. It starts off like pride, and it looks like pride. And some people call it pride. But that pride really changes into a word called arrogance. And arrogance arises from pride, but it's not the actions, but from the global self. Here's what I mean by that. The global self is the value you place on yourself in comparison to everybody else and everything else. So when it comes to you putting yourself, that same kid who was playing basketball, and he comes in for the last 20 seconds of the game, and he scores the game-winning shot. That particular shot at that particular moment is a reason why they won the game. The person who's proud is proud they made the shot. And they can add up all of the points prior to that shot and say, we did it as a team. My team passed the ball. If you watch any type of good sports athlete, any type of good athlete, what they say is, hey, it was a team effort. We're all in it together. You know, they passed me the ball at the right time. They got me open. I took the shot. It's all the practice that we've done. We worked together. All those things happened, and that's how we won the game. The other side of it, the arrogant individual, see how I use that word individual? That arrogant individual is the one who says, man, I made the game-winning shot. If it wasn't for my shot, we wouldn't have won. And I don't care if we scored 88 points before my shot. It was that shot that I took is the only reason why we won. That's a very arrogant individual. And it started off being pride. But once he excluded everybody else around him, he no longer considered anybody else other than himself or herself, then it becomes arrogant. My dad, I talked to him earlier today, and it's always real refreshing when I talk to my dad, because a lot of the things I'm thinking or things that I'm considering to talk about, I just kind of bounce it off him and see what he says. We don't always agree on every single thing, but we always kind of have a similar underlying principle about what we're saying. And when I was talking to him today about pride, he was telling me about him and his brother, Elliot, my uncle Elliot. So Hoss and Elliot was out there stealing apples. And what they used to do was they would go to other people's farms and they see an apple tree and they take all the apples off the tree. But they wouldn't take all of them. They take the ones that are right at the bottom. And when they had apples and nobody else had apples, they may have 2 or 3 apples, pockets full of apples. They were the small apples. They were the easiest ones to get to. They didn't really require a lot of work, but they were still proud to have an apple. Well, if they continue to let the season develop, the big apples would grow. And these big apples would be at the top of the tree. And nobody had big apples, except for the people who had the tools to get to the top. And the people who were willing to put the work in to get to the top, to get the big apples. And my dad and his brother used to go by and throw sticks up in the trees and whatever they could find to try to knock one of those apples out. And every now and then they worked hard enough to get one of the big apples. When they would get a big apple, they had this huge sense of pride. They had waited for this apple to develop. They had got the right tools. They got the apple out of the tree, and now they could enjoy the apple and everybody could see it. And if it wasn't for my brother, I would have never just been patient enough. Boom, they would cheer each other on. The arrogant individual is the one who shows up with a chainsaw, who cuts the tree down and runs around town with all the big apples. Now, in some sense of his or her crazy mind, they're the most important person in the world because they got what everybody else wanted, which was the big apples. But what they failed to take responsibility for was what the other problems that they caused. The tree is dead now. It'll never produce fruit again. Nobody else can ever benefit from that tree doing that. Nobody else can ever benefit from being able to build pride in themselves for waiting on that apple to develop. Nobody could do that. And that arrogant individual, again, refuses to take responsibility for the damage he's caused. Now, guys, again, I appreciate you being here. I think pride is something that, people say, if you just have the right amount of pride, if you just have the right amount of pride and kind of evenly distribute it throughout everybody else, then you'll be okay and you won't be an arrogant individual. It's a very fine line. But pride affects us more than just in our personal relationships. It affects us in work. And that's kind of where I want to go with Tim Harrison tonight. I'm going to go ahead and bring him in. See if I can get him to come on in the house. Tim Harrison. There he is. My main man, Tim Harrison. Tim, welcome. Look at that. You hear the claps? That's pretty quick, ain't it? Yeah. I just
I
did it right
like
there.
it. I like it. I like it.
Hey, Tim, welcome to the show, man. Welcome to the Basement. I've been talking, and I'm sure that you've been listening in. I've been talking a lot about pride and what pride means and kind of where it derives from and how it transitions from it being pride to it being arrogance and how that can be detrimental to things like leadership and life and relationships. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about how you see pride. I remember, just earlier, me and you had talked about it. And we've been talking about it. We used to sit around for hours and hours and hours and talk about, leadership and pride and how these things do it. Can you give me your take on pride, man?
Absolutely. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to come on the show.
Oh, yeah, man.
I think, the dialogue that you have with the public is awesome. And, it's very important that we talk about things. Pride is a beautiful word for me. And I'll kind of explain that. Obviously I'm a father. So, when I think about pride, I think about how proud I was to have a child, my first son, as well as my other children. So pride can definitely be a good thing. When I really think about the word pride, it kind of reminds me of a dam. When it comes to a dam, as we all know, holds back water, and they use it for all types of different purposes. So when I think about pride, pride can go one way or another. And I compare it to a great dam, because if pride is used in the right way, then it can be a great source of electricity, for example. It could be a great source of power. However, if pride is not utilized in the right way, then it can be very detrimental. It can ruin lives. It can ruin relationships. So when I think about pride, there's a lot of things that come into play, and most of it has to do with the individual and how they do these things. Like, for example, let's say in a sales environment. In the sales environment, if you go into a sales environment, or you're already a part of a sales environment, obviously numbers and reaching goals is a major part of it. If an individual who reaches the top does not handle pride the right way, then it could bring down everybody around them. And quite frankly, nobody's going to learn from them at all. Conversely, if a person who has the pride to say, hey, I want to be the top salesperson in the sales organization, then he or she is going to follow the steps, follow the process, stay true to everything that's supposed to be going on. And when they reach that goal, they will have a sense of pride, but that sense of pride will also allow them to reach back and show another individual on how they get there. So pride can take on very, 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 very many different avenues.
Yeah, certainly, man. So one of the things I heard you say was about, when somebody follows a process and when they're kind of hitting the wickets and then they become pride. And earlier, I was talking about, pride being derived from a specific action that's considered positive value. I feel like what you're saying to me is that, look, you can't really be proud of things or work that you didn't do. And when you try to skip past that stuff and then you end up trying to be prideful, your pride is kind of empty. You don't have anything to be proud of. I remember when I went to boot camp, and you went to boot camp as well, in the Marine Corps, and everybody talk about, proud of belonging or proud of being a Marine. Man, you got to be so proud. And it wasn't until I finished up boot camp that I looked back and I said, why would I be proud to be a Marine? And it wasn't until I studied the history and tried to and figured out what the legacy was all about. Like, why are Marines so proud? I mean, they got plenty of branches of service. Both my brothers and my sister all joined the Army, and I'm sure they were proud, and I'm proud of them. But when I looked at what I was achieving and the completion of recruit training, the high stature of what that recruit training meant to me, to my family, and really globally, I guess when you think about the Marine Corps, I had something to be proud of, but I had to know what I did in order to be proud. So when I look at people who are in the sales industry and they are proud that they sold, 5 or 10 cars, or if they sold 50 cars, I think they're proud about the number. But I think that number is what makes them arrogant, and what their pride is really associated to is the work that got them there. Exactly. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that 100%. It's the work That's what I meant by the process. It's the work. Accomplishing something and you didn't go about it the right way does not give you the same sense of feeling than if you went about it the right way, you was able to accomplish it and achieve whatever goal that might be. That's the sense of pride that I think falls in the positive category. You know, if we had boxes to check, then that is the type of pride that I think falls in that positive check mark.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, you talk a lot about that checking the box and having that mental attitude. And anybody who's ever seen any of the live session I did before, any videos that I've done, if I ever talk about a positive mental attitude and drawing the chart, Tim is the one who told me that. And when I saw him do it, man, I was kind of in awe, kind of watching it happen. I was like, holy smokes, man, this guy's on to something. You know, but talking more specifically about pride, I want to now I want to dial in just a little bit to how pride affects your ability to reason in a leadership position. Like sometimes you become a very prideful person and you have, you know, you've done the work and you start off with all great intentions and you got to a position and you're there. And now you're so proud of yourself, like your whole family thinks something of you. Heck, your dog even thinks that you're the freaking president, you know, and when you come home, you're proud of yourself and you get to work and all of your actions are really based on the reputation that you're proud of. And then you're faced with a problem. And my dad said this earlier, said, yeah, you don't really find out how good you are until you're faced with a problem. So you need to plan for some problems, put some problems in your life, son. And I was like, all right, I'll try to find some problems to put in my life, Dad. Thanks, man. You know, but when those leaders are faced with some of those tough decisions and pride is in the way, how does that affect them, man?
I'll tell you, it's very, very detrimental. You know,
okay.
Leader has a definition, you know, and a lot of people put a lot of different definitions. There are a lot of different definitions. So the definition that I'm going to use right now by no means is the only definition. But when I think about leadership, the first word that comes to my mind is accountability. All right. There's no way you can call yourself a leader or be in a leadership position and accountability is not at the very top of one's mindset, as well as drive their actions. So hopefully I can answer your question this way. When you're accountable to other individuals, then the process becomes more important than how you feel at the time. You know, whether you're having a bad day, whether things are not going quite the way you would like for them to be, none of those things really matter. It's those times when you really have to stick to the process, because the process was derived and built regardless, process of being a father, being a husband, being an employee, being a leader, there's a process for all these things. So when it comes to leadership, you have to lead and you cannot allow your personal pride or personal feeling at the time get in the middle of that, because to get in the middle of that, then you're going to go off course. That's how I kind of look at it. So you're accountable to too many different things to allow. If you're called a leader, then there's a certain level, a huge level of accountability that you must pay attention to at all times. And if you're not being accountable, then there's no way you can lead. So pride is the last thing you need to let get in your way, because we're all human. All of us have a sense of pride. All of us have a sense of, look, I'm going to tell you the way I feel about it. Well, it's not about how you feel about it. It's about sticking to what has been tried and proven, the process, and following along that. That's true leadership. You being accountable to the people who are below you or who you are leading. So you have to follow a process. Otherwise, how can you expect them to do so?
Yeah, man. And you know, it's hard when you have to be the person who is charged with being accountable for everybody. Tough decisions have to be made. You know, it's not always the popular decision. I mean, other people would disagree with you. Maybe I wouldn't have did it that way, or I would have did it like this. I mean, that's a hard position to be in.
Absolutely.
You know, I think that accountability piece is huge, and it creates kind of a multiple layer of accountability, though, because you have to be accountable for decisions you make and the consequences of those decisions after those decisions are made as well. I mean, that thing ripples. And after the first decision is made and all the other ones that come with it, that's what you're going to be held accountable to. And that's how people are going to measure your success and your ability to lead based on all those things that happen, you know, and that can be kind of challenging. After the pride shows up, after the pride is there, and maybe you've taken some time to kind of reel yourself back in. I mean, how do you get them back on track? and say, okay, I need to check myself. Okay, I put my pride in check. I need to move this thing back to something that resembles leadership, something that I can be proud of. I mean, get some wheels turning with how things are supposed to work for them. Talk to me a little bit about how you recreate, people's drive and determination when it comes to pride.
All right. That's a wonderful question you asked there.
I figured you liked that one.
Mark. Absolutely. Because we've talked about it. We've had discussions for hours about it. And as soon as I say it, you're going to be happy to hear it. I know I'll be able to see it on your facial expression. The good Lord blessed us with 2 ears and 1 mouth. I told you I'd get you. Yeah, 2 ears and 1 mouth. So in times that you may have allowed pride to take you off course, especially in a leadership position, I think the first and the best thing, and the most important thing you can do is to take that step back, like you mentioned before. And now you want to take a second and take a few moments, or maybe take a couple of hours and listen to the individuals that you're leading. Listen, and really not listening, as you always talk about, not listening, waiting for opportunity for a response, but doing true listening. Listen to what they have to say. Listen to their point of view. Take the time to think about what they're trying to say. Put yourself in their shoes, and then use your leadership ability and your leadership experience to find a different way to accomplish the goal.
Okay. Do I have to start all the way back over as a person? I mean, do I really have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to leadership, or reinvent the wheel when it comes to managing pride?
Absolutely not. Too often time, and it's a play on words, so I want you guys to really catch this. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You do have to create the wheel. You put that up on the screen. I want to go through that one more time. You don't have to recreate the wheel. You do, however, have to create the wheel. Let me explain what I mean by that. Oftentimes, we've all heard, hey, man, that's a great idea, but you know what? You don't have to recreate the wheel. What that means is somebody has done it before. It's been accomplished before. Whatever problem, situation that you find yourself in as a leader, it ain't the first time that scenario has ever come up. But what you have to do as an individual leader is you have to be willing to create your personal will, the will that it takes to get through that situation, the will it takes to say, hey, this is the stumbling block, or this is the hill to climb, or the valley to go down into. This is what I'm facing. Let me take my time, take a step back, look at the entire situation, and then build the will in yourself to get through it. So that's what I mean by you don't have to recreate the wheel. Sometimes, one of the worst things that leaders fail to do is pick up a book. Do some research, find out, hey, surely I'm not the first leader who's found themselves in this situation. Let's take a look and see how some other people were able to overcome it and fix it, or whatever the case may be. Do a little research and then apply that research to your own situation. That is the will that I'm talking about, the WILL that I'm talking about. You have to be willing to take a step back and then have the will to get through it. And whatever tools you can grab to help you through it, there's no crime in that whatsoever.
That's pretty powerful words, man. I think about the will to create, and I think about the secondary benefits of when you create will, or when you start read books. So when you start reading books and you make yourself smarter, more knowledgeable, and you look at some of the mistakes and some of the triumphs of some of our prior leaders, the benefit, I think that the secondary benefit is that when you're humble enough to reach out to your own outside of your world and start reading some books, it prevents you from having to be blinded by your pride.
Absolutely.
A lot of times we can just blind ourselves. That pride becomes so blinding that I'm going in this direction because that's what I said. But that ain't always the right direction, man. That ain't always the right call. Even referees, professional referees, make the wrong call. Mm-hmm. And they sit there and they watch it over and over and over. And I've even seen referees in some major sporting events simply just don't want to get it wrong. I'm the referee. If I tell you I'm wrong now, then I'm always going to be questioned. So I'm not wrong now. I'm never going to be wrong. Punk pride is what I call that.
Exactly.
Flat out punk pride, man.
And you see that all the time. It's funny you brought up sports. There's a reason why that now they have the monitor, because they realize that what I thought I might have saw, it might not have been it. But that one call could totally change the course of this game, the outcome of this game. So you know what? Let me take a step back. Let me grab the other striped uniform guy who's on my team, and let's walk over to the monitor and let's take a harder look at it. Let's take a harder look at it. You know what? I may have been wrong. And a lot of times they find themselves that they was wrong. And there's times they find out, I was right, but it was still they owe it to both teams on the floor to say, hey, let's take a second look at this thing so we can get it right. And that's what I mean by, like you mentioned, going outside your circle and finding people who have done it wrong before and see how they fixed it. And you'd be surprised how great of a tool that is in your leadership.
Absolutely. Sean Benson, a very, very good friend of mine, I call him Slap. He said, well, what about the evolution of leadership? And I would have to, just knowing who he is and knowing how he talks and knowing how he thinks, I'm going to have to interpret this question as how has his pride affected the evolution of leadership? And you know what, I'm going to tell you, Sean, thanks for asking the question, first of all. But my response to that, man, would be that prideful people or people who are arrogant haven't done the work to get into the position that they should be in. And when they kind of skip line and they don't know why they're there, and then they live there and they have to make decisions because somebody else told them to do, and they don't understand the true scope of what they're doing, they become very childish leaders. And that evolution and running into millennials, some people say I am. I think I'm right there kind of on the line. I don't even know what year. I think it's like 82, 83 to make sure I'm a millennial. I was born in 81, so maybe I just made the cut. But I find myself doing it too. I'm not, and I don't want anybody to ever take this out of context. I don't think that I am immune to being arrogant. I don't think so. I mean, as my friends, sometimes they say, I think I know everything. And sometimes I do know it. I say it with a lot of confidence. I ain't always 100,000% sure about it, but sometimes I want to speak it with confidence because I think I know. I think I've done the research. But the newer leaders now, I think, may be getting a little bit better at not having to be perfect. A lot more than the older ones who've always done it a particular way, who are unwilling to say that, you know what, I may have had this thing wrong for years, and maybe I need to look at it again. So I think if I was to answer that question, Sean, I would probably say that, it really depends on the industry, but the leadership is changing. And the more people who are reading more books now about how leadership is changing, and people like Tim Harrison and myself and a lot of my friends who are in this industry, I think they're doing a lot better job now at talking to, cross management wise about some of the things they've done from different places. And they've kind of got that cross pollination of experience. I remember when Tim first got to the dealership, he came from a total different world. He came from the wild, wild west. And then he ended up on the east side of town where things were a little bit different. They did business a different way. And he could see that. And he still was able to take the fundamentals of flat out leadership and apply them every single day and get the same positive results by inspiring people to do well, inspiring people to want to do more, inspiring people to do enough work to be proud of. And when you don't do enough work to be proud of, it's hard to be proud of what you did. When you see a result and don't know how you got it, how you be proud of it? You feel what they call lucky. All right. And being lucky ain't nothing to be proud of because you did nothing to become proud. All right. So, Sean, I appreciate answering that question. Punk pride. Yeah, you spelled that right. You doggone right you did. I just made that up. It probably don't even mean nothing specifically, but I just think it is, man. I think pride is kind of punkful, man. It's you afraid to admit that you ain't did enough work. So you got to be proud of the result rather than the energy putting in. So being effective in cross-functional environment. Absolutely, man. That's what it's all about. It's about being functional in a cross-functional environment. When you have switched an organization or switched a type of job or whatever it may be, and being able to still be effective is because you got your pride in check. You're not blinded by your stupidity. You're not blinded by just a blanket rule that this just works, period. Don't ask any questions. This is the way it's going to go. That's silly. All right. But people and leaders and subordinates are the same. Have to be smart enough to use human reason to come up with logical ways to handle situations. And you got to take your emotions out of it. Pride is an emotion, and if you can take your emotions out of it and look at it from a logical standpoint, I believe that all of us as leaders can make better multi-intellectual skills. I can't keep up with you, Slap. All right, yeah, you're right. It is multi-intellectual skill sets, but you can be proud of what you've done. And as a leader, kind of what you have to get done. I kind of lost my train of thought there because he keep throwing words at me and I keep putting them up. It's my fault. Either way, you all understand the point that I'm making is that you have to be willing to put the work in. When I was recruiting years and years ago, kids say, "Come on, I want to be a Marine." You want the pride of being a Marine. You want the title of being a Marine. You want to walk and smile and be happy like I am about being a Marine, but you ain't willing to put the work in. You ain't never going to reach a sense of pride until you put the work in. You're a fake is what you are. You're a phony. And ain't nothing proud about being a phony. Tim, hey, look, man, unless you got anything that you want to cap, you got anything that you want to cap off with this thing?
I do.
You always do, man. I can always count on you for the last word.
I really like Sean's Benson's comments there. What I like to comment on is the comment that he's saying, being effective is a cross-functional environment. Absolutely, Sean. I agree with that 100%. I like to add a little bit and kind of dig in that too a little bit. I think a lot of mistakes based on pride that older leadership makes, you talk about the evolution of leadership, is they try to manage everybody or lead everyone on their team the exact same way. I think that's a vital mistake, especially with Mark bringing up millenniums. Nothing negative or positive to say. It's just a different individual. And each individual should be managed a little differently, because what drives one individual isn't necessarily important to another individual. Same way with our goals that we set. You can't tell me that two individuals have the exact same goals. No two individuals have the exact same goals. So if they don't have the exact same goals, there's no way you can lead them or drive the production or however you want to phrase it the exact same way. So in a leadership position, if you're going to lead a group of people or manage a group of people, then you have to realize that you have to get to know what buttons and what drives and what is the goals of every individual. And each individual, you have to lead them a different way. You can follow the same process, you can reach the same end result, but how you manage that individual and how you motivate that individual could definitely be different from one to another. So I'm glad you brought those points up.
Absolutely, man. Everybody ain't Air Jordan. Everybody won't pass the ball. You know what I mean? So, I've heard that put a couple different ways, man. And I've heard that put in the way of the carrot and the stick. Some people want to be beat and some people want to be fed. And if you don't understand, if I want the carrot or if I want the stick, then you may be giving me the carrot and I don't want the carrot. That's not what motivates me. That's not what moves me. What moves me is the stick. I want to feel some pain. I want to know that I got your attention so much so that you're putting yourself out there to give me what I need because you know me. And I think my boss does a fantastic job of kind of pushing the fact that we need to make sure that we manage on a one-on-one level. You and I did it really well. And when we talk about one-on-one counselings, we sit down with every single person and we want to do this every single day. And we want to talk to them about what affects them. Sometimes that can be a little bit overbearing. But at the same time, if you're not in tune with your people, if you're not checking the pulse every now and then, if you're not checking the pulse regularly, you might have a low heart rate. Okay, a low heart rate happens just before death. All right, so and just on the adverse side of it, on conversely, a too rapid of a heartbeat could be just before death. So we have to watch and make sure that everybody's vital signs are good, but we can only do that stuff through really good, in touch and in tune leadership. Hey, Tim, man, I just want to tell you, thank you so much, man, for spending some time with me. I normally run about 30 minutes to this show right here. I got some fantastic guests who keep chiming in, who do a fantastic job of keeping me motivated about it. I at least got 5 people been hanging out with me for probably 50, 40 minutes. Well, not that long. It can't be any more than 34 minutes, but for the last 30 minutes, man, thank you so much for being here. I asked at the beginning that what you do is just tell me that you're here so I can say thank you for being here. I have no idea who you are. All right. So at some point in time, just say, hey, Mark, I was here. I'm okay. Right on the wall like a bathroom wall or something. Mark, I was here. I'm glad that you're here. Tim, I'm thankful that you're here, man. I know that you're going to continue to be a blessing to your peers, to your superiors, to your subordinates. I know you were certainly a blessing to me, man, because you came to me at a point when I really, really needed what you were able to bring, which is the knowledge and the leadership and the camaraderie that was super important when I was in a tough spot, man. So I want to personally tell you, thank you so much for being that for me. Thank you for having enough pride in yourself and building pride around everybody around you, and the fact that you would build people who wanted to be proud of the work they did, not the work somebody else did for them. Nobody can be proud of a paycheck that somebody else earned, okay? You ain't never gonna be proud of me because I earned a paycheck. Be proud of yourself because you can be proud of me because I did the work to earn my paycheck, man. And that's something that's super influential to me. Hey guys, everybody, real quick recap. We talked about pride, okay? And in the pride tonight, what we really discussed was the pain and the pleasure of pride and how these things affect us and how it can be, beneficial, but also detrimental to leadership. How it can be beneficial in understanding why you're proud. Go back and look at your knowledge, read some books, understand why you're proud, understand how pride can affect you. And then you also have to take a look at, it has my pride turned into arrogance? Am I only making decisions because I don't know what else to do? I can't really look at it as a somebody with some human reason. I have to make these decisions simply based on just what everybody else is doing, which would be a silly way to look at things. My friends everywhere, stay motivated, stay determined to be successful. We're going to have a good, strong week. Today is Tuesday. You have a few more days to make this a very productive week. Thanks again for tuning in. I hope to see you soon. Please feel free to comment below on something that you felt was beneficial tonight. If you see this later on, share it with a friend. I'm super glad that you have it here, man. Y'all be safe. This your man, Mace, signing out of the basement. Out of the Macement, M-A-S-E-M-E-N-T. Y'all be safe, man.